Sparks sitting right over here, ready in her festive holiday, looking towards the Thanksgiving harvest season, set over here. And, I'm thinking about this harvest thing, and we had an issue today. We were discussing, is it appropriate to have the Pilgrim and the Native American standing side by side? Are you guys going to go over here? Can your camera go there?
Oh, there we go.
Camera go there? There we go. So, but I said, keep them on the set because I'm not changing what we do to accommodate the wokeness of the hour. Besides that, most of you guys aren't going to be offended by Thanksgiving, the Pilgrims, the Native Americans.
Will you be doing a Thanksgiving Day broadcast? Last year, we ran a rerun of the year before. So I'm wondering if you're going to liven it up this year and do a special Thanksgiving Day broadcast.
Folks, do you want me to do a special Thanksgiving Live? If you want me to do a Thanksgiving Live, we'll do it because I'm going to tell you something right now. It's one of my favorite days of the year. And of course, I associate it with the food we eat. Annabelle makes me my special little stuffing, my special little sweet potatoes, my turkey and my cranberry. Oh, I'll tell you, it's like, tryptophan. She introduced me to the word tryptophan. Is what knocks you out when you have turkey, by the way.
Tryptophan?
I think it's what it's called, tryptophan.
I don't think it's cane.
Ladies will tell you, they'll write it down. They'll say the tryptophan is a chemical in turkey that knocks you out. I think it is. I just came from Europe. My son got married in Prague. That's why I was in Europe last week, and Annabelle and I went over there for our son's wedding. And of course, I ate a lot of Czech food, and in Prague and in Hungary, Czech food. It's some of it's really great, some of it's like kind of unusual. But I liked it. And then I went to Vienna and had some German food. When I was in Prague and I ate Czech food, I woke up the next day, I was hungry for more. When I ate German food, the next day I woke up and I was hungry for power.
It's tryptophan.
Tryptophan is tryptophan?
You make it sound like it's turkey cocaine. It's tryptophan. But no, it's tryptophan. It's Tryptophan.
And what does it say about tryptophan?
It makes you sleepy.
It makes you sleepy.
Yeah.
So you see, after you eat the turkey and you feel like taking a nap, it's chemical, people. It's not you. All right. So having said that, I want to talk to you about, are you prepared? Because, when we're dealing with the world right now, and we're still going to be, as Christians, we are going to make it a decision. We're going to make a decision. We're not going to allow ourselves to be jerked around by every bit of news cycle about, the world's coming to it. Christians are the only people I know that traumatize themselves. The world's out partying, and Christians are traumatizing themselves constantly about tribulation, the Antichrist, the beast, the mark, the this, the that. It's supposed to be the other way around. You're supposed to be the people that are filled with joy, disconnected from the trauma and anxiety in life. And the world should be saying, what have you got that I don't have? How come you're not bothered by these things? So let's adjust this right now.
That's good.
One of the ways we do that, Mercedes, is the wise man sees trouble and prepares himself. Noah was moved with fear and built an ark to the saving of his household. There's 2 verses I just gave you. I talk about seeing something and being motivated by concern about what's coming to do something now. Then it gives you peace of mind when that happens. So for instance, I know that there's going to be interruptions in energy supply. I know there's going to be interruptions in monetary policy. I know there's going to be interruptions going on in the world of media, and there's going to be interruptions in food supply. I can, therefore, prepare to a degree in all those areas. That's why I've been telling people all along, like with My Patriot Food Supply, you want to go to the LanceWallnau.com/Patriot and get yourself the 2-week food supply. Get a 2-week food supply for you and for your family, because you know what? When you need it, it's too late. You have it now, and it has a 20-year shelf life with like 2,000 calories a day or something like that, and a variety of food. Only modern science can produce what this food supply provides for you. It doesn't perish. It doesn't go bad. You don't have to worry about it. 20 years now, I'm thinking about this like probably sometime within the next year or 2 or 3 or 4, there's going to be a moment when I'm going to need that 2 weeks to 4 weeks. And it's not just me. My kids will never make this decision, but my wife will make sure that they're eating, no matter how old they are. So you want to think about this. Go to LanceWallnau.com/Patriot. Get like $200 off. They have percentages off At least look at the 2-week food supply and have the peace of mind that you prepared yourself. Does that make sense, Mercedes Sparks?
I think it does. They also have a lot of other stuff over there. So if you're kind of like me, I like to get a bunch of different things. I also like to get their little seed bank and like grow my own vegetables and have that on hand. They have generators. They have water filter systems. So it's like, I kind of like started at get a 2-week food supply for that reason. Like hurricane season's not over till end of November. Then we've got the ice storms. If something happens, you just good to have food on hand. But they have so much more than that too. So I'd encourage you to go check it out. LanceWallnau.com/Patriot.
I didn't think about that. I'm going to go check that out because it's the water filtration system too is the other big deal.
Oh yeah.
Like you got to have water, but what happens if the water supply gets contaminated?
Dude, I'm really wild. I have like those big blue barrels in my garage. Like I have that. I have the drops that you put in there to like purify the water so I can fill them with a hose. I mean, I'm really.
I have a friend of mine that made a fortune off of those little straws.
The life straws.
The life straws.
Yeah.
The guy was early in on it, and he made a ton of money off of that.
I have some.
All right, so anyway, LanceWallnau.com/Patriot. Just go noodle around on the page, and you can kind of like, what do they call those prepper? You can prepper out and understand why people that are in the know prepare before the crisis happens. Let's talk about what's happening with Jim Jordan right now. Talking about crises. Before we go there, you got that Charlie Kirk tweet there? Can you bring that up? I don't want to linger long on the mental illness issues of the Ivy League schools, but this is what happens. You get your cultural Marxism. You reject Christ, especially a school whose original motto was, I think, Veritas or something like that, which is, Christ and truth. And what do they end up with? Massive stupidity. 1,000 Harvard students are standing in solidarity with Hamas. This ought to make all the Jews at Harvard feel really comfortable right now. If you're Jewish and at Harvard, or if you're one of those multimillionaire, billionaire peoples that's putting up libraries there, you want to think about this. Jewish donors are finally realizing that they've spent decades subsidizing Jew hatred on campus. Jewish donors work their whole life and give away massive sums to create activists who hate them. More than anything else, colleges are the source of the anti-Jew, anti-white, anti-West poisons that are destroying our nation. But now the tide is turning. I want to say something. The tide is turning. I've struggled to try to find a way of explaining this intuitive awareness that I have. Mercedes, that this is a good thing. If there's something wildly redemptive about the culture war we're in right now, which is when culture is out of alignment with God, with truth, and with your own self-interest, then there's an agitation that goes on. And somehow something's wrong here. That's what's helped me discover Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and various others. I was looking for voices that could explain to me. Certainly understood a biblical worldview. Most of you are Christians. I get that. I want to understand my discerning, my sense of right and wrong, my visceral knowledge of what is good and evil was clearly, you don't tear down your country. You don't poison little white children and make them think that they're toxically inferior to others. You don't poison young African-American black kids by making them hate other races. But I needed to have an understanding as to why are people doing this? And Jordan Peterson and various others came along and explained the pathology of wokeness or the ideology of Marxism and how it works as a tool to break up the power structure of a cohesive nation and instill in it a disunity that results in a reconfiguring of power based upon another idea, which is hostile to freedom and self-expression and demands conformity. That's basically totalitarian. Communism is totalitarian. Islam is totalitarian. Everyone was all upset about Christianity, evangelicals, Christianity, theosophy, going to take over, what do they call it, where, you're going to have not a theophany. That's an experience of God. But you're going to take...
Theocracy.
Theocracy. Mm-hmm. Everybody's worried about, but you see the point is, and we wrote it in our book, Islam and communism are going to be the two powers in the end that are going to control the earth, and the only resistance will be the fragile clay of the democracies struggling to try to resist the iron boot of the beast. But you see, democracies operate under the influence of Christianity that has enough of a preservative in society to allow logic and autonomy and conscience and self-expression to keep itself from being assimilated by a bigger operation, the beast, the boot of authority. The intimidation, manipulation, and domination are the characteristics of an unhealthy religious ideology, whether it's communism or Islam. Both will intimidate, both will manipulate, both will dominate. The Jewish faith and the Christian faith have this uniqueness. Their power is persuasion. The weapons of their warfare are their ideas, not their boots, not their swords. It's the ideas. It's the ideas that man is made in the image of God, and that we hold these truths to be self-evident and obvious, if you think about it, that mankind is a created being, and that all of us are created equal, and we should have an equal share to happiness, and no one should achieve happiness at the expense of someone else's happiness. That's a basic foundation of the supreme achievement of Western civilization, which was the formation of the United States in its inception. Charlie Kirk is pointing out here that school that was first established for the training of students of divinity, Harvard, was established for training clergy. It's now so hostile to clergy, it actually celebrates the hatred of Jews, and that's one step removed from the hatred of Christians. What's amazing is these are the kids with the greatest degree of privilege, the greatest degree of, evidently, intellectual achievement in a secular world. So you shouldn't be surprised if Caesar and not Christ is training your children. Don't be surprised if Christians end up in the arena having to face the lions, because those privileged, sop-headed sophomores at Harvard do not understand what it is they're saying when they celebrate their solidarity with Nazis, tyranny, or the destruction of the innocent, and come against the innocent, free-thinking democracies of the earth, such as Israel on a Sabbath at the end of a feast, with no intent to harm their neighbor, while their neighbor intends to destroy them. Interesting. I would take those names of those 1,000 students, and I would put them on a database and have them run by every HR department that's going to hire healthy employees for my company, because I certainly don't want to have my Jewish board members or people in my company threatened by this kind of hatred. I think those 1,000 ought to be willing to stand in solidarity with career choices and only go to companies that are in solidarity with hating Jewish people.
I was just looking online to see what Harvard's motto is. And so its original motto was for Christ and Church. And then it was changed to Veritas. So on
its original motto.
Amazing, huh?
If that ain't, that's not something. The original motto for Christ and Church. Listen, I got to transition here, and this won't be an elegant transition, but I got to go there. We got to talk about other craziness. Before those 1,000 Harvard students get off into the blood system of America's corporations, we have to try to preserve ourselves from the insanity that's already on the loose in Washington. Let's talk about Brother Jordan. Brother Jordan, Jim Jordan of Ohio, has been losing these ballots for House Speaker. And, but remember this. How many ballots did we go through with the last speaker as...
how many voting sessions did we go through for Kevin McCarthy?
Kevin McCarthy had 15 voting sessions. A lot. If I'm not mistaken. So let's not get ourselves all wee-weed up here over the fact that we're going through a couple of cycles right now. What we ought to think about is these 3 thoughts that I have on Facebook. By the way, you ought to all be watching Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, you're missing something, because I put all my blog stuff, all my podcast stuff, before it even goes out anywhere else, I sample it on Facebook and read comments.
If
That's
you're
how
not on
people talk to me.
Facebook, you're under 45. I said, if you're not on Facebook, you're under 45.
Yeah, if you're under 45, you're missing where the action is.
Well, you're on a lot of other places too. You're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, you're on Getter,
I'm on TikTok,
you're on Gab.
YouTube, Getter, Gab. I'm on the artist formerly known as Twitter.
Yes, but that's your favorite. You like Facebook. That's your favorite platform.
I do, because after Periscope, with my Periscopians, it's the only place I can go live and actually get feedback immediately. And I love the people. I love to read what they say. So on 10/18, I made this comment: nothing's more important than the consolidation of leadership in the United States. And I observed three things I want to say right now. Who are the holdouts? I listed them. I listed them for you so you could see. You got your Florida, I can't believe, Mario Diaz. But of course, these are going to be the Democrat strongholds, probably around Miami or something. Hey, Texas, these guys are all blocking Jordan from making progress. Texas Rep Jake LZ. And in Georgia, Drew Ferguson. New York, well, New York's a tough job. Drew Ferguson. Florida again, Carlos Jimenez. Texas again, Tony Gonzalez. Another Texas, Kay Granger. Hey, man, these are Republicans. They're not Democrats. You need to call them up and talk to them. Michigan, John James. Pennsylvania, Mike Kelly. Virginia, Jen Keegans. New York, Nick LaLotta. New York, Mike Lawler. Iowa, Marionette Miller. Florida, John Rutherford. These are Republicans. You understand that? These are members of Trump's party when he was president. Idaho, Mike Simpson. Minnesota, Pete Stauber. Arkansas, Steve Womack. No relation to Andrew Womack. Folks, you have the power if you call 202-225-3121. That's 202-225-3121 or 202-224-3121. You can talk. You want to talk to your state senator's office. You want to talk to your state congressman. Mercedes, do these calls make a difference? You have some experience, as I recall, in the area of political activism.
I don't think you want my answer. I don't think they matter. I really don't. I'm sorry.
I want to say something right now. Call your congressman, call your senator, and let them know. And I guess you've got a good point. I mean, you could be calling from out of state, but it's even more important if you're calling within state. And let me just say these three things. The problem that Jim Jordan is having is he's having his struggle sessions with these holdouts in private. I say, stop having these private backroom meetings. You've had them. Have the vote out in public. Have the discussion in public. Let these people, I want to know how the sausage is made. I want to know, how do they do this? Because I'm going to tell you something. Some of the holdouts are influenced. All of them have reasons. They're not illogical. So if you're in a Republican district, but they're moderate, if you're a moderate, because you got a lot of Biden Democrats or a lot of influence from a city nearby where it's heavily, like Bucks County. I grew up in Bucks County. It's near Philadelphia. It's hard for Bucks County to have anything but a moderate, though I wish they had someone more conservative. The holdouts are frequently near Biden blue districts, or they're in Democrat districts, and they still get elected because they don't appear to be hardcore meat-eating MAGA people. So it's, and even having said that, half of the votes that are in those districts still voted for Jim Jordan. Bravo for the courage of those voters. And I bet you they're hearing from their passionate supporters.
I think they're in swing districts too. That's what I was reading online, that these are areas that Joe Biden won in 2020. And so they don't want to be seen as voting for somebody like a Jim Jordan, who's a little bit further.
That's what I was trying to say, but maybe you said it clearer than me. The third item is other holdouts.
Did you already say that?
I was trying to say that.
Okay.
I said a lot more. It took me a lot. I'm still jet lagged, people.
Okay.
I'm still hungry for Czech food. Other holdouts are in strong MAGA Trump southern states. This is hard to believe, but I'm reading Florida and Texas and Georgia. What the heck? You know why? they got big military contracts. They got big military bases. It's where the Southern military money is. So the weird thing is, these MAGA country, this is where you've got strong Trump support, and they're voting against Jordan. Why? Because they want to put somebody in who's going to rubber stamp their spending for the government on the appropriations bill. Now you're learning something. I found this out. Southern congressmen are voting for Biden's spending plan because they're donors with the military bases who make money off the military are saying, you better hold the line or we're going to put you out and put somebody else in who'll stand with us. I'm sorry, I've got Christian friends of mine you never hear of in the paper. You know why? Because they're kissing, the senator's butt up there in Washington. Whoever's in charge of the Armed Services Committee and the Appropriations Committee, they want to be on those committees. If you're going to be on those committees, you better play ball with the people that pull the strings to get you on those committees. And I'm sorry to say, this populist movement is suffering because we've got people that aren't going to speak up where the spending and the warmongering is concerned because that's their career path to power and how they stay in Washington. Mm-hmm. You see how this, but they can get primaried. Their big fear, I'm telling you, their fear is that's why you got to call. Their fear is not that they got to vote to please the phone call, but that they in 2 years will pay a price for defying the passion of their district. Mm-hmm. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid that you're gonna blow them out by, and you know what? Their plan is to make someone like Mick Henry, the bow tie guy that was sitting in, that's been sitting in that seat. Well, let me tell you something. When you've got the head of the Democratic Party there, who is Representative Hakeem Jeffries of New York, and he's saying the best way to protect Biden's spending plan is to put this guy here in. So when you've got McHenry getting the vote of the Democrats, what the Republicans are planning on doing, they're so eager to spend that $2 trillion extra. They're so eager to get their appropriations for Ukraine war. And, oh, man, Israel war. They make their money off of war. It's a weird profession, folks. But let me tell you something. They plan on making McHenry the acting speaker who's going to empower the Democrats. I won't even mention the fact that it strikes all Republicans forever for the next till 2025 from presidential succession. Because the president goes, the vice president goes in. The vice president and the president are gone, the Speaker of the House becomes the president. You put in someone like McHenry, you're done. You won't have a Republican in there. So it would be a total sellout of the conservative agenda that won us the House majority, Ken Blackwell says. Ken Blackwell is a former ambassador, chairman of the Conservative Action Project. Republican members need to see through this plot by the uniparty establishment to block an American first agenda that would save our constitutional republic by stopping the Biden agenda and paving the way to elect a new president in 2024. Well, Steve Bannon says something interesting, and I'll just throw it out there. He says, look, Jim Jordan may not be everything that you want, but he's everything the Democrats don't want, and therefore he's the best guy right now for the job. Because he's sympathetic to the idea that there was election fraud. He doesn't like the $2 trillion deficit. He's been able to, and he understands how to take the heat in the kitchen and stand for conservative causes. He's got the strength and the youth and the energy still in him to be able to do the hard work that's required of that role. I pray that he succeeds, that we'll be able to see him get in, but it's going to happen because you guys put the pressure on these 22 Republicans who voted against him. I didn't even mention Colorado, Ken Buck. You guys are in Colorado. Oregon, Representative Lori Chavez DeRemer. Florida, another Florida one, Vern Buchanan. Nebraska, Don Bacon. He's the top one. He's the former Speaker of the House. He voted for Kevin McCarthy. Nebraska, Don Bacon. I'm giving you the 22 names, folks. Bannon says this. I love Bannon's attitude. He says if they make McHenry the speaker, if he becomes the one that the Democrats put in on their behalf, and he votes through all of Biden's spending, it'll make 2024 like Stalingrad for Hitler. The resolve of our base, our people, and our movement will be brought to such a fervor, such a heated pitch of resolve and engagement that you will see them, every one of those 22 Republicans are going to experience the backlash that a concentrated force can give them of some 30 to 40 million MAGA Republicans. It is a powerful, if you don't believe it, they just pulled McCarthy out of office and did the unprecedented. This movement's capable of dealing with a failure of this party to get its act together.
That's good.
And one can only wonder what they'll do if they try to lock up Donald Trump. But you'll never see us out in the street like the crazy people supporting Hamas do, or like the crazy left does around election cycle, pulling down statues and burning cities and rioting. But I don't think the American people are actually in the same place they were in 2020. I guarantee they aren't in the same place they were in that summer of love that took place. I think the attitude towards Hamas and the radicalism is God is bringing down the axe to the root of the tree, and that there's kind of an awakening happening in a different sort that's saying, no, there's something definitely wrong here. The spending that's going on in Washington is endangering our ability as a military to survive. And if we don't have the military, we can't project our power on the world stage. By the way, that's the reason why today, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but Biden gets, the president of the United States takes off in the Middle East. We're funding Jordan. We're funding Egypt. He shows up and says, hey, can we have coffee while I'm in the neighborhood? President of Jordan says, no, I'm busy. President of Egypt says, not this week. I'm kind of busy. Folks, when the president of the theoretic world superpower comes flying in and you don't have time to meet with him because you don't want to annoy your constituents in your country, your Arab people, that tells you something. That tells you Joe Biden isn't Donald Trump. Because I can promise you, the king of Jordan, the president of Egypt, they wouldn't be blowing off coffee with Donald Trump. Because the first thing Donald Trump would say is, meat's off the menu, boys. You're going to go through a deep freeze. I'm cutting off all support for you. Not only military, but also our intelligence services. You're on your own for a while. See if China cozies up to you. I guarantee within a day that you get that appointment. Biden doesn't have that ability because nobody respects him. Well, on that cheery note, may God hear this prayer. You know, Derek Prince prayed a prayer. He was praying at the time when England was losing. They were losing badly to Rommel in North Africa in the Second World War. And young Derek Prince, new Christian, he was praying and fasting on different days of the week. And he was praying for God to give victory to the British Empire. And the Lord spoke to him and clarified something. He says, don't pray that I give you victory. Pray that I give you leaders such as is consistent with my glory to give you victory. At which point, Derek Prince stopped praying for victory and started praying for God to give leaders such that God could consistently, in the name of his own interest and glory, his glory, not the glory of England, not the victory of the English people over the Germans, but his own glory, be consistent that he gets victory. And you know what happened? Strange thing happened. I almost hesitate to tell you this. There was a World War I tank commander who was flying in. His plane sadly crashed. The man that Churchill sent to replace his dysfunctional leaders that were being beaten so badly by Rommel never made it to command because his plane was shot down. So Churchill had to go deeper down the bench to whoever his runner-ups were. He picked the son of an Anglican preacher, kind of an unknown entity, but his name was Bernard Lloyd Montgomery. Bernard Lloyd Montgomery ended up becoming the general. The first thing that he did, this is interesting, because my father was actually in North Africa with the United States. He started off with Patton and then went to the Air Force. And he said the discipline with the Brits was so superior to the American soldiers. He said that the first thing that Montgomery did was he went to the officers' mess. And he noticed that the officers were eating first and that the soldiers were eating last. From now on, my officers will be eating last. You're going to model what it means to be a leader by taking care of your men. And then he proceeded to tell them that there was going to be no more cursing and no more blaspheming, that the British soldiers were going to act like British soldiers and talk like British soldiers. And then he commanded a moment of prayer as he took control of the operations in North Africa, and he besieged the God of battles to grant victory. Derek Prince said he was listening to the radio and had an astonishing revelation that God had answered his prayer and fasting and given them a leader such as it would be consistent with his glory to give them victory. Pray that God gives us leaders. Jim Jordan is such a leader. I know Donald Trump is vilified, but I'll tell you, he is such a leader. You want leaders that is consistent with God's glory to give you victory. And pray that we don't get ourselves involved in a war with the leadership we have right now. For those very reasons I stipulated. It's not a good time for America to be engaged in war. I pray in the name of Jesus for peace. I pray in the name of Jesus for calm. I pray in the name of Jesus for wisdom. May we rise above the din and the noise and the clatter of other things and come into a place where we know that God is God and he's working out his will on the earth, and he'll work out his will for you. As you look to him, as you call upon him, as you honor him, you're going to find your paths directed, and you're going to be able to hear God and see God and experience God's profound peace. Any closing thoughts, Mercedes Sparks?
As you're talking, I'm listening to them, and I've listened to you all day. To be fair, we've been together for almost 8 hours today. I'm thinking I should have a segment on the show called Did You See? And I'm just going to play for you like millennial type things, because it's not news, but I think it's hilarious stuff where did you see online? There's all these theories out there that Ron DeSantis is actually wearing high heels inside of his boots. Have you seen that?
I have. I'm trying to avoid those subjects in an effort to have a serious conversation.
No, yes, I know. It's always so serious, but you're so funny, though.
It's arched like that, and so he must be wearing, like, inflated heels.
Well, like, what I love is, like, the reenactment stuff that's on TikTok or like, Instagram or wherever, and it's, like, they put what it looks like, his foot probably looks like inside of the boot. So I just think it would be funny to do, because you're so intense. It's so weird. When you're in the studio, you're so intense. When you're at home, you're, like, whimsical and funny and all these things, and here we're just like, Jim Jordan, the fate of the nation, call your representatives. And it's so intense, but you are so funny though too. So anyways,
I know. I just
one of the many things.
I agree. I remember I had one conversation with Glenn Beck. Met with me once. And I said, you know, Glenn, you know when you were the best? It's when you didn't let everything you knew depress you. And you had a sense of humor and whimsical. And he said, you're right. And I think he was already thinking about it before I talked to him, because he started going back into trying to find humor. He started stacking people around him that would give some more funny perspective of the irony of things. But admittedly, it's, you know, these subject matters aren't funny.
I know.
But we do laugh a lot. And I suppose I need to try to find that dimension. It's just these subjects.
Or I just want to interview you. I think that would also be funny if I could just ask you questions, and then it's more of a conversation, and it doesn't even have to be your show. It could be a totally different thing.
Well, look, I'll tell you what. I'm willing to do this next show we do. You can ask me, did you hear about? We can do a whole segment on did you hear about? Like, for instance, today she was trying to tell me, I didn't go there today. She was trying to tell me about, well, there's a lot of people, including, I think Chelsea was saying this, that Charlie Kirk is saying that he thinks the intelligence failure was on purpose, that Hamas attacked and that Israel knew they were going to attack, and that this was intentional, just like Golda Meir did in their 67 war.
I don't think my questions aren't that intense. I love when you tell stories, and I know a lot of your good stories. So I like to pull things out of you. Like even before this, you were talking about all these different dreams you've had. I think people would find that fascinating, like the prophetic side of the dream life of what's going on. I just think that's what people love. People love when you're drinking soap and you're like, I thought it was a smoothie. They think it's funny, but yeah. But you're brilliant too, obviously.
I'll tell you what. We'll try to. I'm jet lagged. I just flew in from Prague last night. Who does 2 hours of news analysis after they fly in and just got in? I got in this morning from Europe. 7 hour, 8 hour,
I know.
10 hour.
No, you're great. I'm not picking on you, even though people probably think I am. I'm not
this is the rhinoceros. I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Seinfeld says, don't you think it's a bit insensitive to call a nose operation rhinoplasty once you realize where it comes from the word rhino? So we're going to sign off, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. What happens if a natural disaster takes place? We have these weird tornadoes that hit in the Midwest and in Texas, but look at the hurricanes in Florida. People can literally have their houses flooded, or they're in a situation where they have no food or access to groceries. Everyone needs at least a 4-week emergency food kit. And fortunately, My Patriot Supply has created a 4-week emergency kit. And these products will last for 25 years. The interesting thing is they give you a 2,000 calorie per day meal. And that's the key. Delicious and 2,000 calories a day, because that's what you're going to need to sustain yourself for 4 weeks in a crisis. We had a winter freeze here in Texas, of all places. And we had a couple of days where we had no electricity. I'm telling you something, this makes a huge difference. Mushroom rice pilaf, fluffy rice and mushrooms, seasoned with red wine and herb. And then how about starting the day off? Maple Grove oatmeal, old-fashioned oats, maple flavoring with a pinch of brown sugar. This is what you want to do. 4-week emergency food kit, and that's just for you. Think about your children. Guaranteed, somebody around you is going to need help. You're going to want to at least have the 4-week emergency kit. Go to lancewallnau.com/patriot. Use that link, and you're going to get a special discount on their special 4-week emergency kit promotion.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.